On today's show, the Houston Rockets get the big-time wire-to-wire win on the road against the Dallas Mavericks. The Rockets' physicality was just too much for the Mavericks to deal with in this game, and Jalen Green delivered in the biggest moments. We're going to break it all down for you coming up right here at Locked On Rockets.
This is Mission Control, Houston.
Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Every day is a good day when you beat a Dallas-based sports organization. What's up, and welcome to another edition of Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball. As always, I'm your host, Jackson Gatlin, native Houstonian and credentialed media member. I'm also the host of Locked On NBA Thursdays. Be sure to follow along wherever you listen to your podcasts or on YouTube. Just search Locked On Rockets, where the best way you can help us grow our show is to listen every single day on a podcast platform of your choosing. Like and subscribe on YouTube. And while you're there, drop us a comment, come by, say go Rockets, tell us your favorite part of this win against the Mavericks, and a bonus favor I have to ask of you. Do a drive-by over at Locked On Mavericks and let them know Locked On Rockets sent you. Keep it civil in the comment section, but also poke a little fun at the Mavericks' expense for this 108-102 loss to your Houston Rockets. Now, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. Now, new customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. It's that simple. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. And as always, thank you so much for making Locked On Rockets part of your day every single day, whether it's on your way to work, on your lunch break, in the gym. Thank you so much for being one of our amazing everydayers. Rockets get the big-time wire-to-wire win. Mavericks never led in this game, despite their best efforts to make a comeback in the fourth quarter. Rockets get the win 108-102. Easily the best game of the season for the Rockets. Easily the biggest win of the season for the Houston Rockets. And we're going to get into how they got this win. We're going to take a look at some of the game flow, everything. But I want to start with that fourth quarter, because as good as the Rockets did play in this game, the Mavericks are still a very, very good basketball team. They are the reigning Western Conference champs for a reason. And Luka Doncic did his damnedest to try and drag the Mavericks back in that fourth quarter. He had 15 of his 29 points in that fourth and final frame. But one of the biggest reasons why the Rockets won this game is they had Jalen Green delivering in the biggest moments there in that fourth quarter. Luka had 15 in the fourth. Jalen Green had 11. He didn't quite match Luka point for point, but he had so many timely buckets. Buckets when the Rockets needed somebody to make something happen. And that's what star players do. They respond. And it felt like every time the Mavericks started to make a little bit of a run, started to put together a 5-0, a 7-0, cutting into that Rockets lead, Jalen Green was right there with a bucket to calm things down, to give the Rockets a little bit of breathing room. Easily the biggest bucket of the game, the shot of the game, whatever you want to call it. Rockets were up 194. Luka hits a three, his third straight triple of the fourth quarter, and it pulls it to a one-possession game, 197. And then on the very next, Jalen Green has it on the next possession. He's trying to drive in, try to make something happen, tries to get downhill, can't get past his defender, walks it back out to the three-point line, and takes a step back like it's absolutely nothing, and it's just, boom, bottom of the net. Rockets get a 103-97 lead, a two-possession lead, a little bit of breathing room, and that was the biggest shot of the game to take, again, some of that momentum, some of the wind out of the sails of the Dallas Mavericks. And that wasn't the only moment. Again, Jalen Green had some big drives. He had some and-one opportunities. 11 of his 23 points coming there in that fourth quarter, hitting big shot after big shot to kind of quell the tide and calm things down a little bit and give the Rockets that breathing room. And this is another example of how Jalen Green has really elevated his play this season, to be able to be entrusted with being the go-to guy in those closing moments. There were still maybe some other moments, after that one really big Jalen Green three where the Rockets had some help from Thompson, who had a big time turnaround that he hit going baseline, and then Dillon Brooks, who ultimately hit the dagger in this game, although that shot probably didn't belong to Dillon Brooks. Ultimately, he hit it, and we're happy that he did hit it. But at the end of the day, you probably want probably want both of those touches going to Jalen Green with how effective he looked, especially in that fourth quarter. But I digress. This was a really big win for the Houston Rockets. It felt like a statement win for the Houston Rockets, right? Look, the Mavericks are one of the favorites, one of the true title contenders in the NBA, to walk into Dallas and to manhandle this Dallas Mavericks team the way that the Rockets did, to have a 23-point lead at one point in this game. Yeah, the lead kind of evaporated at the end there, but that's what star players do, right? Luka Doncic tried his best to take over this game in the fourth quarter, and Jalen Green said, nah. Jalen Green said, stop that. I got us. I'm going to help drag the Rockets to the finish line. And that was the main difference. It looked like we were headed for a repeat, right? It looked like we were headed for a repeat of last season's April matchup with the Dallas Mavericks, where the Rockets led big and then they collapsed at the end. Dante Exum hit the three to force overtime, and then they lost in OT, right? It looked like that's exactly the same storyline that we were getting ready to experience again in Dallas. This time, though, the Rockets got the buckets that they needed, right? They got that Jalen Green delivered in the biggest moments of this game, in addition to Thompson, in addition to Dillon Brooks with the dagger, right? The Rockets got the buckets they needed. And this very much feels like it's becoming Jalen Green's team. And I say that in part because Ime Udoka made it a point with about 3.5 minutes left, a little over 3 minutes left in the game. He went small. Like, he went full-blown small ball late in this game in order to open things up for Jalen Green. He said part of the reason that he went small with Tari, Eason, and Thompson out there to close out the game was because he wanted their defensive versatility, but he also said it was because offensively, he felt like the spacing wasn't quite where he wanted it to be. The guys were kind of getting in each other's way a little bit, speaking specifically about Alperen, Sengun, and Jabari Smith Jr., so he wanted to open things up, right? Open up the driving lanes for Jalen Green. And so he catered the lineup and the offense. He catered everything to Jalen Green in those closing moments. And if that doesn't help illustrate that Ime Udoka is empowering Jalen Green this season, leaning into how well he has played to start the year, I don't know what else does. Again, big time win for the Houston Rockets. Huge moments from Jalen Green, delivering as you want a star player to do in the closing moments of this game. Not quite point for point with Luka Doncic, but basically right there with him, stopping every single little Mavericks run. And one other little note about Jalen Green in that fourth quarter, it's smaller in the grand scheme of things, but he had a block on Kyrie Irving at the top of the quarter that I felt like was important because the Mavericks had a ton of momentum going from the third quarter into the fourth quarter. Kyrie was cooking, and for Jalen to be able to get that stop on Kyrie, it's just one of those moments where it stops the momentum just a little bit, right? Rather than the Mavericks just being a runaway freight train of momentum at the top of the fourth quarter, getting a stop like that helps kind of wrestle back some of that momentum. So a really good defensive moment from Jalen Green, who had a bunch of good defensive moments in this one, as well as how he delivered offensively late in this game. But a big win for the Houston Rockets. Want to break down exactly how the Rockets were so dominant throughout so much of this game. Their physicality was just too much for the Dallas Mavericks to handle, getting their bigs in foul trouble. This was probably one of the better games of Alperen Sengun's season to this point. We're going to get there in just one moment. First, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Look, get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can bet $5, just $5, and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the exact same page where you actually place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You can head on over there there, take a look at their parlay builder, different season awards, or just the outright favorites to win this year's Super Bowl. Right now, the Chiefs are at plus 420, the Ravens plus 650, the Lions plus 700, the 49ers plus 750, and rounding out the top 5, you have the Bills at plus 900. So for all those odds and so much more, head on over to FanDuel.com. Again, you get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. And continuing on here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast, home for everything Houston Rockets basketball. All right, one of the keys to this game for the Houston Rockets, this is going to be a key throughout the season, right? One of the strengths of this Houston Rockets team is truly, it's their physicality. It's their physicality and it's their ability to compete on the glass. Getting second and third chance opportunities, especially when you're a team that is not as quite as efficient as we would like this Houston Rockets team to be, when you're, missing some open shots, that kind of thing. When you get those extra opportunities, it really helps give you a competitive edge over your opponents. And that was very much the case in this game against the Dallas Mavericks. The rebounding was so beneficial for the Houston Rockets. They out-rebounded the Mavs 50-37. 18 offensive rebounds for the Rockets to the tune of 20 second chance points. The Rockets were plus 12 in the second chance points category, 20 to only 8 second chance points for the Mavericks in this game. And a big part of that was the Mavs center tandem, Daniel Gafford, Derek Lively, just being in absolute foul trouble, having zero answer for trying to guard Alperen Sengun in this game. Sengun looked a lot more like himself throughout various points of this game. Still not looking 100%, still doesn't look like he quite has, I guess, the burst or the explosion that we're used to him having. And again, I think a large part of that has to do with the back issue that he's clearly got. Something lingering is going on there. He constantly has the heating wrap around him when he's on the bench. But in this game, Alperen Sengun, 17 points, only 5 of 16 shooting. He did miss quite a few shots in and around the basket that he would normally hit. But he did get to the free throw line 9 times, 7 of 9 free throw shooting, and he had 12 rebounds, 6 of them on the offensive glass in this game to go along with 4 assists and a block mixed in there. Sengun's physicality kind of helped set the table for the success for the Rockets in this game. At one point in the third quarter, Derek Lively picked up his 5th foul in the third quarter, and Daniel Gafford was already sitting on the bench with 4 fouls. The Alperen Sengun was such a foul magnet in this game, and the Mavs really had no answer for him, to where Jason Kidd had to go deep in his depth chart and throw out Dwight Powell for 6 minutes in this game. That's how difficult life was for Daniel Gafford and Derek Lively in this game. Gafford and Lively combined for only 6 rebounds in this game. Gafford played 15 minutes, Lively played 15 minutes. This was an impressive game just from the standpoint of the Rockets were incessant with their physicality, their tenaciousness on the rebounds, and a big part of that was Alperen Sengun, but it was also a team affair. Up and down the roster, you see how guys were so incredibly active on the glass in this game. Jalen Green had 12 rebounds in this game. He had a strong double-double performance, and he was very active on the glass, closing out defensive possessions strong, right? Being able to get out, run, and transition a little bit after good stops. Jabari Smith Jr. had 6 boards. Dillon Brooks had 4 boards. Fred VanVleet had 5 rebounds. Off the bench, Tari had 4. Amin had 4. The Rockets were just gang rebounding so well in this game, and that helped kind of set the tone. Now, elsewhere in this one, just focusing on Sengun for a second, again, didn't quite feel like he was 100% back to normal, but a much, much better all-around performance for Alperen Sengun. And there's going to be very few games where he goes 5 of 16, right? You liked a lot of the looks that he was getting in this game. Really, honestly, aside from just missing some shots that he would normally hit, defensively, I thought he did a fantastic job in this game. One of the most potent areas for the Dallas Mavericks is their pick and roll attack, right? Having Luka, having Kyrie running the pick and roll, and having their bigs in Daniel Gafford and Derek Lively rolling hard to the rim. That's a really hard tandem to guard. And it felt like the Rockets pick and roll defense, and Sengun was a large part of this, right? Was actually pretty good throughout the majority of the game. Gafford had I think Gafford had one, maybe two lobs over the top of the defense in this game. Derek Lively definitely had at least one, but they really weren't effective. Again, they only combined for 12 total points, right? Those guys on any given night, right? Luka, Kyrie feeding those guys the attention, the gravity that they command defensively. I mean, sometimes those guys break 20 points just off of lob passes from Luka and Kyrie, but the Rockets were incredibly poised defensively in this game. I thought they did a great job kind of sticking to their defensive principles throughout the majority of this game, in particular on Luka. Kyrie is Kyrie, and Kyrie's going to hit some absolutely absurd shots. He's going to hit some ridiculously tough, baskets where they have zero business going in. That's just who Kyrie Irving is. But I thought the defensive attention to detail on Luka Doncic in this game was fantastic, right? The Rockets didn't fall for a lot of Luka's pump fakes and a lot of his antics. They forced him into basically taking a ton of contested two-pointers in this game. You go back and look at just the first half numbers. Luka was 5 of 13 and 0 of 3 after the first 2 quarters of this game. He was 2 of 4 at the free throw line. You can chalk some of that up to some shooting struggles. Maybe Luka, going 0 of 3 was, more luck based than anything else. But the Rockets also did a really great job of not giving him the easy looks that he's used to getting, right? The pick and roll defense, again, was really solid, and they forced him into tough contested twos, right? Luka loves to do that thing where he puts the defender on his hip, drives the ball in, and then he'll pump fake right there once he gets towards the basket to try and force the defender up in the air, and then he draws a foul, and then he got an and one opportunity. Rockets didn't fall for any of that. All right, Luka would get to his little pump fakes right there, 5-6 feet away from the basket, and the Rockets would stick to their principles. They'd stay on their feet. They'd force them into these tough turnaround fadeaways, and Luka's still going to hit a fair majority of those, but they didn't let Luka beat them from 3, and they also didn't let Luka get his teammates involved in this game, right? They basically forced Luka into saying, you know what? We're not giving you threes. We're not helping off of your teammates. You're going to have to beat us with these contested mid-range jumpers, and that's all we're conceding. That's all we're giving up to you in this game. And it worked. Luka really didn't come online until the fourth quarter. So the defensive approach for the Rockets in this game, I thought, was fantastic. They did a great job limiting guys. Again, as an aside here from the defensive standpoint, they did a great job sticking to Klay Thompson, who really, again, didn't wake up until the fourth quarter. And it's a big part of that was the Rockets just did a great job sticking to him throughout the majority of this game. He only had 2 buckets going into the fourth quarter. Then in the fourth quarter, he did hit 3 more shots. He had 8 points in the final frame. But there were moments, there was even one where in transition, Jabari Smith Jr. located Klay Thompson and closed out so hard on him, right? He was like, no, where's the one guy that I have to find in transition? And that is great attention to detail, right? That is, Ime Udoka talks about it all the time. KYP, know your personnel. And in this game, the Rockets absolutely knew who and what they were dealing with in Kyrie Irving, Luka Doncic, and Klay Thompson. And then elsewhere, the Rockets were fully content to let guys like PJ Washington or Najee Marshall or Spencer Dinwiddie, they were totally fine with all those other guys taking shots. In fact, at various points in this game, the Rockets actually even broke out some trapping defense, right? They had some moments where they elected to try and trap Luka or trap Kyrie to force the ball out of their hands and make somebody else beat you. And they didn't do it enough to where those guys would be able to truly take advantage and anticipate, oh, I'm going to have a trap on me every possession, or they're doubling me every possession, so I'm going to look to facilitate instead of looking to score, right? Ime used it very selectively in this game, kind of end of shot clock moments or end of a quarter where it looks like, okay, well, Kyrie or Luka, they're fishing for the final shot, and doing it in those kind of selective moments, I think, is more effective because it prevents the opposing star player from getting accustomed to it, right? Oh, okay, they're doubling me every possession. Now I know I'm looking for the outlet pass, right? You keep the offensive player guessing when you only do it sporadically. So I really, really enjoyed a lot of the Rockets' defensive approach in this game. They were monsters on the glass. They were great defensively. They had the Mavericks in foul trouble all night, in large part due to Alperen Sengun's impact in this game. Really fantastic performance from the Rockets. Coming up, I want to talk about the dynamic duo off the Houston Rockets bench, Tari Eason and Amin Thompson, who were both massive in this game. Got the opportunity to close this one out. That's how good they were. We're going to get there in just one moment. First, today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Look, Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of different ticketing offers. But that's not the only feature that Game Time has that's incredible. They've got their Game Time ticket coverage, the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry, their lowest price guarantee, views from your seat, so you know exactly what to expect when you get to your venue, and my personal favorite is their all-in pricing feature. So when you download the Game Time app, you toggle on their all-in pricing feature, and they are fully transparent from start to finish, so you don't have to guess or be confused about your price throughout the ticket buying process. So take the guesswork out of buying your tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off of your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNBA. That's LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time. And final segment here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball. Look, I was praising the Rockets defense a lot there in the second segment. I want to give specific props to two guys, Dillon Brooks and Amin Thompson, who, again, they were the primary defenders on Luka Doncic throughout a majority of this game. I thought they both did really impressive jobs, again, sticking to their principles, not falling for a lot of the baiting tactics that Luka throws out there, right? The crafty moves, the pump fakes, all that stuff. Ime Udoka talked about it post-game, but, you know, Dillon Brooks is the head of the snake defensively for this Houston Rockets team. He's the guy that sets the tone defensively, but to be able to go from Dillon Brooks as like your primary ace defender, who again did a phenomenal job in this game, and then being able to bring in Amin Thompson fresh off the bench to pick up wherever Dillon Brooks left off in guarding Luka Doncic. He was giving Luka headaches throughout this game. That dynamic duo defensively did a really, really great job. And then Tari Eason, who was the other wrecking ball off the bench for the Houston Rockets, wasn't often the primary on Luka, but there were some moments where the switches happened, all that stuff. But Tari was just really effective in this game. In fact, this game got a little chippy at one point because Tari Eason was boxing out Daniel Gafford under the rim, and the two of them went crashing to the floor. Gafford took exception. And Tari got up and immediately dusted it. He was, dusted himself off like nothing happened. And Daniel Gafford got up and was like pointing a finger at Tari Eason, and Steven Adams was out there and just kind of like walked into the middle of the scrum and it was just like held up a hand. It was like, no. I tell you what, it's good to have an enforcer like Steven Adams out there on the court. I mean, look, Tari can handle himself. This is a Rockets team absolutely full of dogs, but add Steven Adams to the mix, and it's just something to behold. Speaking of, where's my line?
Coaches are dogs. All the players are dogs. I'm a dog. That's just what it is.
Steven Adams is a dog. It is what it is. Love it for the Rockets. But off the bench, right? Tari and Amin were huge in this game. They both got to close in this game. They didn't even crack 20 minutes, and some of that has to do with Tari Eason, who is still not on a medical restriction, but Ime Udoka has been on record. He can only play him in these little like 5-minute kind of burst intervals, which is why we haven't seen Tari, north of 20, 25 minutes yet, because his impact is so important for this Houston Rockets team. He had 15 points off the bench, 6 of 10 shooting. He was 1 of 2 from downtown, 2 of 3 from the free throw line, had 4 rebounds, 2 assists, and a block mixed in there. He was a plus 12, tied for a team high plus 12. Jalen Green plus 12, Tari Eason plus 12, the two highest plus minuses for the Rockets in this game. And then Amin Thompson, also off the bench, 10 points, 4 of 5 shooting, including that insanely difficult turnaround fadeaway with under a minute to go to keep the scoreboard moving for the Rockets immediately after Jalen Green hit that really big three-pointer. So Amin Thompson hits the turnaround, puts the Rockets up to 105. Amin also had 4 rebounds. He had an assist. He had a steal, had the great defense on Luka Doncic. Those two guys are so key to what the Rockets do defensively. Being able to throw those two guys out together on the wing, I don't know if there's a better defensive wing duo in the entire NBA than Tari, Eason, and Amin Thompson. I'm being so serious right now. Like, point me in the direction of a better defensive duo than those two. I mean, maybe you look at somebody like I'm trying to think of when they're healthy, like maybe Herb Jones, Trey Murphy, like maybe on the Celtics. I mean, everybody on the Celtics is a plus defender, but I don't know if like Tatum and Brown are quite the level of defenders that like Amin and Tari are. Amin is an all NBA caliber potential guy. So pardon me, but it's just one of those where that is such a benefit for the Houston Rockets to be able to go into their bench and bring those two guys in. And where a lot of teams rely on their bench for, a sixth man type guy to come in and be like a microwave scorer and pick up the shooting, the scoring slack, whatever. The Rockets go to their bench and they bring in these two like Swiss Army knife defenders who allow them to switch all these actions, and they can throw out different coverages. And I mean, that's such a benefit to have in those two guys, and Ime Udoka giving them the opportunity to close out this game, that switch everything lineup. Again, that's where Ime is the most comfortable, is defensively, having those guys out there, switching everything 1 through 5. And for those guys to be out there, Alperen, Sengun, Jabari Smith Jr., I don't think it was anything about what those guys weren't doing in this game. Both of those guys had strong performances or solid games at a minimum in this one. It was more just about the versatility of what Tari and Amin provided in those closing moments and being able to space the floor offensively for Jalen Green. Now, it wasn't all sunshine and roses in this game. This was an ugly performance for both teams, honestly. Like, the Mavericks only shot just under 46% from the floor, 33% from three, 70% at the free throw line. Rockets shot 41% from the floor and only 23.5% from downtown. Still managed to win this game, though. They were +6 at the free throw line. They had 20 made free throws compared to only 14 made free throws by the Mavericks. So the free throw line helped. Talked about the second chance points earlier. The rebounding battle, that helped a ton, 20-8 in favor of the Rockets. The other area where it felt like the Rockets were really effective in this game and kind of helped, build up a margin for error was points off turnovers. The Mavericks take better care of the basketball than anybody else, any other team in the NBA. They only had 10 turnovers in this game, which is about on par for their season average. But the Rockets were able to turn those 10 turnovers into 21 points. Like, that's huge for the Rockets to be able to get out and convert off those opportunities, those good defensive stops, forcing turnovers, and then getting out in transition and scoring off those opportunities. That is huge for this Houston Rockets team. Now, some of the bad news from this game, I'll start with two kind of smaller things and then one like bigger picture concern. Two small things here. Alperen Sengun did look more like himself in this game, but there were very specifically 3 different opportunities in the first half of this game alone where Alp had Luka Doncic on a switch and was not able to punish Luka. Now, on the third and final one of those, Cam Whitmore did a bad job spacing the floor. He tried to cut at an awkward time, and the whole possession was kind of blown up because the spacing was trash. So I'll write that one off. But before that one, there were 2 separate opportunities where Alp had Luka on a switch and didn't take advantage of him. Now, Luka's not like a scrub guarding in the post, right? He's big, he's strong. He's kind of like James Harden in that regard, where his post defense is actually one of his better defensive attributes because he's more of a defensive sieve on the perimeter when you got to guard somebody face up and you got to get to attacking him laterally, whatever. But for a guy like Sengun, who's as talented and as crafty as he is, he should have been able to do something to Luka in those moments, right? He should have been able to make Luka pay. He should have been able to draw a foul, should have been able to do something to Luka. And I feel like if Sengun was 100%, we would have seen a more aggressive Sengun. Sorry, did I say Luka 100%? If Sengun was 100%, I feel like we would have seen him more aggressive in those moments. Again, I'll chalk it up to health issues so far for Alperen Sengun. But that was a little bit disappointing to see out of him, but very, small potatoes in the grand scheme of things. Just something I wanted to highlight here. And for Jalen Green, as well as he played in this game, 5 turnovers was a little bit brutal. Now, as a whole, the Rockets only had 10 turnovers as a team, so I'm not going to like harp on it too much because they did a really great job taking care of the basketball. And when you are a star level player, when you handle the basketball as much as Jalen Green has been doing, you're going to have some turnovers mixed in there. But there were some moments where Jalen maybe like picked up his dribble a little preemptively or had a bad pass here or there. And those are things that are, I think, kind of more so in his control that he can clean up a little bit. And if you get those 5 turnovers down to, only 2 or 3, then we're talking about this being an absolutely fantastic game with no blemishes instead of, okay, well, the turnovers were a little bad, but other than that, he was great, right? That's the kind of progress we want to see for Jalen Green. Now, the biggest concern in this game, Fred VanVleet, man, Fred was brutal in this game. There's no way to put it. No other way to put it, I should say. Only 4 points, 2 of 13 shooting, 0 of 7 from downtown. He did have 5 rebounds. He had 4 assists, no turnovers. But I'm sorry, you need more from Fred VanVleet. You do. And especially if Jalen Green is going to be handling the basketball in these close games, in these end-of-game situations. Look, we saw Fred VanVleet hit a huge shot against the San Antonio Spurs. And that was great. And he's going to have a lot of opportunities to do that this season because the way things look right now, Jalen Green looks ready and capable and arguably better at running things right now than Fred VanVleet does because Jalen has the downhill pressure, right? He has the scoring gravity. He has the threat of getting himself going, but also facilitating and finding his teammates and getting them going, right? That's what a star player does. Fred VanVleet's been a little hit or miss so far this season. But at a minimum, Fred needs to be able to hit open shots that he gets within the flow of the offense. At this point, nobody's asking Fred to go out there and ISO and score and generate his own shots. And, you're not asking Fred to do a ton. You just need him to knock down the open shots that he gets. And going 0 for 7 from long distance, 2 of 13 overall, that's just not good enough. The Rockets won despite Fred being a massive negative in this game. Fred VanVleet was a minus 12 in his minutes in this game. That was a team worst plus minus. And that is such a far cry from where this Rockets team was last year, where they couldn't do anything without Fred VanVleet on the court. And this year, Fred VanVleet's actually hurting them in some of his minutes. So if Fred can just turn it around and not be a massive negative like he was in this game, and again, Fred hasn't been a massive negative through all 5 games, but it's been more bad than good, I would say, through 5 games right now for Fred VanVleet. That is a little bit of a red flag, and it's a little bit concerning, and it needs to be figured out. They need to turn it around, and Fred needs, whether it's just shooting slump, whether it's him regressing a little bit, maybe it's him slowing down, whatever it is, the Rockets need an answer for it because they cannot have their starting point guard who is making $45 million a year score 4 points on 2 of 13 shooting and only have 4 assists. If he's playmaking at a high level, fine. He doesn't have to score the ball. But he can't not play make and also not hit the open shots he's getting within the flow of the offense because then teams are just going to load up on Jalen Green. They're going to load up on Alperen Sengun, and the Rockets aren't going to be able to make them pay when the double and triple teams come. So little bit of a concerning performance from Fred VanVleet. Rockets got the win anyways. That's what really matters. It's a huge 108-102 win against the Mavericks. Tell me your favorite part of this game. What did you like the most about this Houston Rockets win? Drop a thought in the YouTube comments. Remember, do a drive-by. Go visit Locked on Mavs. Go comment over there. Go tell them Locked on Rockets sent you. We gotta come up with something for that. I saw this being thrown around the other day. You know what I need to do? I need to have the Mr. Skinner release the hounds sound bit on the soundboard because we can be Rockets fans can be the hounds, HOU, Houston Hounds. I don't know. Maybe that sucks. If that sucks, tell me it sucks in the YouTube comments. But as always, thank you so much for checking out the show. Remember, the best way you can help us grow our show is to listen every single day on a podcast platform of your choosing. Like and subscribe on YouTube. Drop us a comment while you're there. And don't forget to subscribe to the new daily Locked on Rockets newsletter. It's in the episode description. Subscribe there. Would sincerely appreciate it. But as always, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. We look forward to having you back right here at Locked on Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball.